From athletes to authors, entertainers to innovators, we connect with those who help shape our culture. Join us in revealing stories of their lives and backgrounds, their triumphs and tragedies that molded them into who they are today. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating, this is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. This week on Audibles, Jim Ellis.
So your story begins right here in the Golden Triangle area. You were born here from West Point, is that right?
That's correct. West Point, actually wasn't born in West Point.
Okay.
I was born in Indianola.
Really?
My dad was a farmer's home administration agent, and he was stationed in 2 or 3 places. If I went from, I went from Indianola to Aberdeen to Starkville, all within the space of about my first 3 years of my life. And then we moved to West Point when I was about 3 or 4 years old and grew up there.
So how would you describe your family growing up?
My mom and dad were great people. We're average guys. My dad was a rural mail carrier much of his life. We had a dairy farm, and we dairied on the side. I grew up getting up at 4:30 in the morning and going to the barn every morning. And my dad said I could play one sport. I loved all three. I loved basketball and baseball and football. But at that time, West Point High School, you played football if you wanted to, And so I played football for West Point High School. Wasn't very good. Was never. I think I started maybe 1 or 2 games my whole career. Most of the time I was one of those mop-up players or came in special situations. But we had good football teams then. In fact, I played with some really iconic Mississippi coaches. Chuck Friend was a running back. Bubba Davis was our offensive lineman. We had another, our center was a guy who was also a high school coach. So we had a number of guys that I played with and I'm still friends with now that were on that team, but I was just on that team. But I enjoyed it. I played sports, and when I wasn't, summertime I played football in the fall, and then the summertime I played a lot of baseball. But it was interesting. I was expected to work, and I did. Spent a lot of days on a tractor in the summertime. Enjoyed West Point High School at the time that I was growing up. It was a turbulent time. As the Meredith situation happened at Ole Miss. I think it was my junior year in high school. Really a turbulent time. I came to Mississippi State and went here for 4 years. The school integrated the year I started the school here, and it was a time that I think was an eye opener for a lot of people. I know that I think I realized before that, I realized when I was fairly young that things weren't right the way they were. And it bothered me. But it really bothered me some of the things that happened over that period of time. So it was a good but sometimes bittersweet experience to figure out exactly what your ideals are and what kind of person you want to be. I actually, when I got out of school, I taught school for 2.5 years. I taught a couple of years in West Point and a year in Aberdeen. That was an interesting experience. I enjoyed it. I liked dealing with the kids. But I went to graduate school actually out in Texas went to a seminary. I was in a seminary for 2.5 years. And I actually have about 50 hours of seminary work that I did out in Fort Worth, Texas at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And it was out there that I decided I was going to be a broadcaster. I realized I wasn't going to finish seminary. I had no idea, no clue what I was going to do with myself. And but I loved sports. When I was a little kid, I used to walk around the house broadcasting games to myself, never thinking that I would get into the business or anything, just something I like to do.
Right.
And anyway, so I thought, what would I really like to do? I said, I'd love to broadcast ball games. So there was a guy out there named Dick Reisenhoover. He was the play-by-play announcer for the Texas Rangers. And I'd go to Ranger games sometimes and sit out in left field. You could sit in left field, and you could get a ticket for about $3, and you could buy a hot dog and a Coke for $1 a piece. So for $5, you could have a great night out watching Ranger baseball. And so I called Reisenhoover, and he was very nice. He said, come on. He set me a time up, and he said, come by and talk with me, which I did, and asked him what I need to do to become a broadcaster. And he said, you got any experience? I said, nope. He said, he said, you're already overeducated. He said, you just need to start practicing doing sports. He said, get you a tape recorder. He said, the thing, if for anybody to hire you, they're going to want you to have a tape so they can see what you sound like. And he said, get you a tape recorder and just record games off of TV. If you get to go to a game where you can get off by yourself, do a game like that. And that's what I started doing. And I taped game after game, and I'd listen back to them, and I'd critique them. And I moved back to West Point, Mississippi, about that time, and actually when I came back, I taught the second half of the school year. I got a job, and I taught the second half of the school year in West Point. And then I had summer, and I was still working at that. And so I wanted to get somebody to put me on the air, and I went to a radio station in Columbus, Mississippi, and tried to get them and gave them a tape, and they listened to it. And anyway, they ended up calling me back, and they said they had a 13 and 14-year-old World Series tournament there for Mississippi, Louisiana, I think maybe Arkansas and Alabama, and it was they were going to have teams come in from all those, and they had to do a bunch of games. Some of the other cities back then, they were that station actually broadcast summer league games or championship type things like they were having. So I think I did about 13 games for them that week, and I thought I did a pretty good job. And I got the tapes and listened to them. I was horrible. I was awful. I was embarrassed. But anyway, they must not have thought I was too bad, because they asked me back to do some football that fall, and I did some football games. Actually, Steve Davenport, who I think you know, Steve and I actually did games together.
Really?
Back, I would think it would be 73, maybe, somewhere in there. He was working at that radio station, and we did some games together that year. I ended up teaching school for another year, and then I got a job in Aberdeen to be a salesman and a sportscaster for a radio station there. A guy named Jim Buffington hired me, really good radio guy, and he really gave me great indoctrination as to how to run a small market radio station. But I did games all over Monroe County. I did. They had the Aberdeen and Amory games, but they also had Hamilton, Smithville, and Hatley that were all in that county. I remember I did a county basketball tournament one time where I think I did like 3 games a day for 4 straight days. But I immersed myself in doing sports, and I was there for 5 years. The last year I was there, Starkville and Aberdeen played football in the fall. Joe Phillips was the manager of the radio station, owner-manager of the radio station in Starkville. The radio station in Starkville at that time had the rights to Mississippi State sports. And so anyway, I did the Aberdeen-Starkville game. And because Joe didn't have a broadcaster, the guy that was doing Mississippi State baseball, women's basketball, and Starkville High School stuff for Joe, suddenly found another job at William and Mary and left here. in the middle of what was high school football season. Nothing Mississippi State had started yet, but he left in the middle. And so he called me and said, would you do this game for me? And I did the game for him and sent it to him. Of course, we broadcast on our station, sent him a feed of it. So at the end of the year, he calls me back. And he said, Starkville's going to play Shannon, which is about 10 or 12 miles from Aberdeen, maybe 14, 15. But anyway, he said, would you go over to Shannon and do that game for me? And he said, he said, I'll pay you $15 if you go over there and do that game for me. Anyway, so I said, okay. So I went over and did that game for him. And then about a week or two after that, he called me back again. He said, have you ever done any baseball? And I said, yeah, I've not as much as the other sports, but I've done baseball for Aberdeen, some of Aberdeen's games. And he said, have you got a tape? And I said, maybe. I'll have to go look. And I did. And he said, well, you send me a tape. And I sent him a tape. And a few days later, he called me back. He said, you're not too bad. He said, I'll have to ask Ron Polk. I'm going to talk to him about whether you could be our baseball guy or not.
Oh, wow.
And so a couple of days later, he called me back. He said, well, Coach Polk said you'd do. So anyway, so he offered me the job. It would be doing women's basketball, baseball, Starkville High stuff that they wanted done, both basketball and football. And then would be a sales manager at the radio station. And so I ended up taking that job. And that's how I got to Starkville. So the first thing Mississippi State I ever did was a women's basketball game. I did women's basketball for 28 years when I wasn't working. I started working out in 83. I got there in 79. Actually 78. I did some women's basketball games in 78. But the 79 baseball season was my first baseball season. But so I did several, I don't know how many, but a lot of women's basketball games before I ever did a baseball game at State.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
The internet can be a dangerous place. With Connect and Protect from C Spire, you get the phone you want, and you get the tools to easily track her location, restrict content, and help protect her at any age. It's like a digital mom arm.
A what?
That thing moms do.
I'm not following.
How do I put this? Look out!
Oh, mom arm. Got it, yeah.
Introducing Connect and Protect from C Spire. Only $30 a month with free guided setup. Customer inspired, that's C Spire.
The fabric of any community is its people. It's the commitment to hard work and to be our best. It's where you know your neighbor by name. It's where family is important. At Covington County Hospital, we are your family and friends. That's why your healthcare is important to us. From emergency room visits to primary care to behavioral health, we want to make sure that healthcare is available when you need it. Covington County Hospital, where your healthcare matters.
"100 years ago, there were a lot more of us. Today, we're using the latest technology to make sure not one seed, not one drop of water, not 1 inch of this farm goes to waste. We want to be here for the next generation of Mississippians, ours and yours. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
That's a pretty quick ascension if you think about it. From the time you got back from Texas and you kind of start, that's a pretty quick ascension to a university, doing radio broadcasting for a university. So did you ever stop and think, wow, this is moving pretty quick here?
Not really. I'll be honest with you. I was surprised. I mean, I sort of fell into it. I didn't know how long I would have to, try to work my way, but that was my goal, was to get to be a college announcer somewhere. And so I was pretty happy about it. I was pretty hard on myself. I didn't like the way, I wasn't pleased with my broadcasting for years, and still am not pleased. I mean, I can critique myself. I'm the worst enemy. I say I did that wrong.
Do you still critique yourself now?
Yeah, sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I guess I want to do a good job at what I do.
Yeah.
And if you don't critique yourself from time to time, and I don't do it as much as I used to now, don't get me wrong, but I still like to go back and listen to see, I now think, I should have done it this way, or I should have done that way. I mean, that's just a part of trying to be good.
You talked about that first year in '79, and if I've heard in other interviews you say that, if I remember this right, Coach Polk said, well, I don't know if we're going to be that great. And that '79 team was pretty good. What do you remember about that season?
Yeah, there's no right. He did tell me that. He told me when I first met him, he said, we were really good in '78. He said, we had a chance to get to the College World Series, and they did. I remember I was out fishing in a lake listening to the guy Mark Alpin, who was before me, and we played out, I think we were playing out at Baylor. And we had a really chance we were within a game or so of getting to the College World Series that year. But anyway, as I look at it, Coach Polk was probably right. That team had a lot of pieces that had to come together to be a really good team. He brought in Don Mundy as a pitcher and Steve Susie, and then he had a guy named Alan Morlock who turned out to be a good pitcher on that staff. And when you put it all together, the pitching staff ended up being pretty good. And then he had guys who hadn't had great years, some of them in backup roles, like a Tim Weisheim, who played first base, or Larry Pavlou, who played left field. But he had a guy named Bobby Kokel, who was sort of the glue that helped hold the team together. Had a catcher by the name of John McDonnell, who was a really solid guy. Just had a lot of pieces. And then probably the best player on the team was the center fielder, Mike Kelly, who could really run, great left-handed hitter, great table setter as a leadoff man. So there were a lot of good pieces on that ball club.
That '79 team went to the College World Series, if I remember right.
Went 20-2, I think, in the league. Won the conference.
Yeah.
And then hosted the first regional tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And won that. And of course, the regional hosted the regional and lost the first game in the regional. I'll never forget going into the locker room, and Bobby Kokel was over there, just taking his, getting dressed, and I said, "Man, tough loss for us." He said, "We're okay, we'll win it." And I never forget that. I thought, "Oh, okay."
Pulling a Joe Namath.
Yeah, we're going to win. We'll win it. So, and they did, and did it pretty convincingly after that.
And you are the architect to this day of the Mississippi State Baseball Radio Network. I remember reading about you're calling stations to try to put together a radio network. And initially, I'm curious, after going to Omaha in '79, it had to be pretty easy to get stations on after that point, right?
Well, it was easy. Well, we ended up getting about 30 stations on that year. Now that's for a very brief period of time, a few games. I found out it was a real chore trying to get stations to carry a schedule. So I started out, I think, with the conference only, plus I think at that time we were playing 24 conference games, and I'd do that in 6 of the best non-conference games and get them to carry that 30-game package, which meant, you know, there were going to be a lot of games we'd broadcast just locally. And I built that up to over 30 stations at one time and averaged out, and I don't know what they do now because you have more big, powerful stations carrying that limits it, so the numbers aren't probably as good now, but we stayed at about 25 stations for most of the time after that we broadcast Mississippi State baseball until I left.
I don't know if folks understand just how hard that is, because you've got stations that a lot of them are different genres. You know, you might have one that's sports, one that's talk, sure, one that's country, one that's hip hop or R&B or whatever it is. So you're trying to sell this one thing to all these different stations that have different genres.
Yeah, and really we'd look at each market. Here are the markets we need to get in. This is where we need to get stations. We'd call and talk, and I know I've gone and helped sell the advertising for a station in several different places to help them be able to get the sponsorship they needed for it. But we were able to maintain that network pretty well, and we had a good core. And of course, the other thing, actually, I worked for first Host Communications, then Mississippi State. Actually was in the athletic department. Larry Templeton brought me in the athletic department as an associate athletic director for about 6 or 7 years. And then we went to Learfield, and I spent a year with Learfield, and now obviously I'm a contract laborer for Learfield, but it was interesting. But I ran the network for not just baseball, but for the other sports too, for the college, and was the sales manager for that for I think 20-something years.
Right out of the gate, when you start calling baseball games for Mississippi State, they start having mounds of success early on and sustain that success for much of the 80s and the 90s. So from 1981 to 1997, the Bulldogs went to 9 regionals, 4 trips to the College World Series. All that success is happening pretty much right out of the gate when you're building this radio network. So you got to be thinking, all right, I made the right decision here to call baseball, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was. It turned out to be a really. Obviously, if we hadn't had success, I wouldn't have had success.
Yeah.
I mean, because the success really is predicated a lot of that success is predicated on the team. Coach Polk was great to work with, and then Pat McMahon was great to work with, and I feel very fortunate. I've had a great relationship, I feel like, with all the coaches that have been through here. They've been good to me, and hopefully I've been fair with them and tried to do my best. And I mean, Coach Lamonis has been a really a great guy to work with over the last few years.
You talk about some of the other opportunities here at the university within the radio network. 1991, you get to team up doing color alongside somebody you grew up listening to, but then became one of your dear friends in Jack Cristil. So,
right.
How would you describe that time in your life, getting to call football games with Jack Cristil?
Well, I mean, it was. Of course, I started calling basketball games with him in 1983. So Jack and I had a long-term relationship, and of course, basketball. I mean, we roomed together for years and years. So I can enjoy that experience. I mean, I grew up the first football game I ever remember listening to was Jack Cristil. Mm-hmm. I think it was in 95 or 94-5, and I'll never forget. I just happened to remember that it made such an impression on me. We were playing Kentucky, and we threw a long touchdown pass late in the ball game to win that ball game. Well, actually, Kentucky got back down into our territory about the 30-yard line when the game was over. But we beat Kentucky, and Jack had a great call on that. And I'll never forget. My dad and I were listening to that ball game. I was lying on the floor in our living room, and he was sitting on a couch, and we had the radio sitting over there listening to it. And I'll never forget that call. That was my first real experience with Jack. So, yeah, it was quite to sit in the booth with Jack was pretty awesome at first, and then we got to know each other. We got to be good friends. We talked all the time, and he was just a unique person, a very unique person, but a tremendous radio broadcaster.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
C Spire's Fiber makes it so easy to make music on my computer. I was on Discord in real time, and it was like that. It's like that. It was exactly like being in the studio. From just the tap of the button, I can just transfer files or send over projects, send over anything. It's just something I don't need to worry about. I'm just like, I have the creative side, and C Spire has got the whole internet side.
It has often been said that home is where the heart is. It's where hard-working and dedicated people form the fabric of a thriving community. At Covington County Hospital, it's our priority to help keep our community safe, healthy, and moving. With our primary care clinics and services, we are working to keep you healthy. Because home is where the heart is. Home is where family matters. Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
It's no secret, our crops and animals need water to grow. Whether it's growing soybeans, corn, cotton, cows, or chickens, farmers use this natural resource every day, just like you do in your homes and at the office. Our promise is to only use what we need to keep producing what you need. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Is that Kentucky call your favorite call you can remember of his, or do you have another that comes to mind?
Oh, there's so many calls with Jack. I mean, it's hard to separate them out. I remember an LSU ball game we did that he did a tremendous job of. He painted the picture better than anybody. Mm-hmm. He always told me, just call the game. And he said the most important thing, he says, some guys want to be flashy, want to have trademarks and all this. He said, just paint the picture. That's what we're supposed to do. He didn't believe in frills. He believed, but I'll be honest with you, I could sit there and listen to Jack and know what was going on probably as well or better than any other broadcaster I can think of. And I feel like I was fortunate to be able to work with one of the best ever.
I worked some time at TeleSouth years ago and got an opportunity to have a conversation with him, and I wanted to go into play-by-play. And I remember asking him some advice, and he talked about giving the score over and over, and then give it some more until you're probably sick of it. Give the score, the time, the situation, all that kind of stuff over and over and over. Is that kind of the advice you've heard him give others?
Yeah, he said, give the score, call the game, and cut out the bull. That's what.
Cut out the bull.
Yeah, that was basically his philosophy of doing sports.
We were telling some stories before the interview started, and I've got some favorite stories from my time at TeleSouth broadcasting back in the day, and working those games and hearing you and Jack, off air, on air, and it was such a thrill to just sit back and listen to that. I'm curious if you have it's going to be hard to narrow it down to one, but do you have a favorite Jack Cristil story that you could share?
One of my, I don't know whether this should be shared or not, but I'll never forget, we were at Kentucky, and Kentucky had, and we were in the lobby at the hotel at Kentucky, and I think it was Jim Masters, who was a great basketball player at Kentucky, and this was right after Kentucky had been investigated for maybe some extra benefits. They had the lodge at Kentucky for the basketball team and maybe some extra benefits. And Masters was talking to a group there, and Jack walked into the group, and we were listening, and he said, he was talking about all the different things, accusations against him. He said, I played basketball here for 4 years, something of this nature. I mean, I can't give you an exact quote, but basically said, I played basketball for 4 years, and I never saw Kentucky do anything illegal. And Jack stepped up and looked at him, and he said, I'll tell you what, if you didn't make $100,000 in the 4 years you were here at Kentucky, you're just a fool. And everybody just stopped. And then Jack turned and walked off. So I mean,
but that was Jack, right? You never had to guess where you stood with him, right?
Exactly.
So in 2011, you take over the play-by-play duties for football after Jack retires. And in 2014, that memorable season, Dak Prescott, the rise to #1. There were so many things about that season that could be called a favorite moment of the season, but I'm curious, from that 2014 season, it was so memorable. Do you have a favorite moment from that season?
Beating LSU in Baton Rouge. Yeah. And the play that I'll always remember is the pass that Dak threw, that was a beautiful catch and run for a touchdown that sort of LSU was coming back, and that was the touchdown that I thought. And then Dak had a great run in that ball game also. But those two plays still I have etched in my mind. But I thought that win, I'd been to Baton Rouge so many times and come away disappointed so many times, and to win that game in the manner that we did was my highlight of that season. That was a special year. I felt very privileged. I started, as you mentioned, from 11 on through I think the 16 season. The last ball game I broadcast football-wise was probably the most miserable football game I'd ever broadcast, because we played it in Tampa at the old stadium there. Mm. And my seat was in the baseball press box, which was behind the goalpost in the end zone. And you could, once the ball got to the midfield stripe, you could not tell, the guy could run, you had no idea whether he made 5 yards, 10 yards, or what. You had no depth perception. And that was by far the worst location in Tropicana Field there, the worst location I'd ever broadcast from. I thought but we did win the game, blocked a kick there at the end, and did win the game against Miami in that St. Petersburg Bowl. That was the last football game I did. And I thought, this is a terrible way to go out of your football broadcasting, in a game like this. But anyway, those things happen. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing football.
Now, basketball is a sport that like you talked about earlier, have been involved with for a long time, since '83, and then assuming the play-by-play duties also in 2011. We interviewed Richard Williams earlier this season, of course, and he means so much to Mississippi State and vice versa. That Final Four team in '96, but there's been so many great moments for Mississippi State on the hardwood. The Final Four has to rank up there, obviously, but I'm curious, what would be a close second to that Final Four?
I think winning in Tampa, maybe. Yeah. Because I didn't think that team had a chance to do that.
Really?
They were good, but I just didn't. I think I was shocked that we were able to win in Tampa like we did, and I thought they played to the level they had to play to win that tournament Yeah, it's funny we're talking about Tampa, but anyway, but that was a good moment for me. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing us put together what we did in Tampa, Florida, and win that. There's nothing like the Final Four. The only downer was the last game. But what we did, I guess one of my favorite, what we did in Lexington, Kentucky, in beating UConn and Cincinnati, I think are the two highlights of my career as far as seeing a basketball team achieve what I thought they could achieve against really all odds. Nobody thought we could beat UConn and Cincinnati. And we did both games and played well in both games. And the guys that had to play well stepped up and played well. And I thought Richard Williams did a great job of coaching us through into the Final Four that year.
And you talked about that experience in Tampa, but then going to that, talking about that experience that year, going to the Final Four, those games in Lexington at Rupp Arena, from what I remember. I mean, come on, you get to call 2 wins on the floor at Rupp Arena, one of the great cathedrals in all of college basketball. I mean, that I'm sure that ranks up there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
The first time we hadn't, the first time we beat that ball club at Rupp was '95. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget Jack saying in '95, as the game got to the end and it was obvious we were going to win it, he said, he said, and the crowd is pouring out, and they were, man, people were leaving their seats and heading home. And I thought, man, to see that spectacle of the Kentucky fans all leaving because they knew the game was over. We had about 30 seconds to go and we were up, I don't remember how much, but up by an insurmountable amount for them to come back, and the people were leaving right and left, just pouring out of the arena with still time left on the clock.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
Mississippi's farmers love what they do, producing food and products for you and your family to enjoy. But we know this land is not just ours, it's yours too. That's why our farmers maintain this soil, keeping it rich and bountiful. We are sustaining this land so it will be useful to feeding generations to come. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
Hi, I'm Erica Bedwell, the Director of Rehab at Covington County Hospital. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services says you have a right to choose the swing bed program that's right for your loved ones. Our patients experience a comforting, supportive, and healing environment in large private rooms. Our swing bed staff is highly skilled and includes board-certified physicians, practitioners, and experienced nursing staff, all working alongside physical, occupational, and speech therapist staff to return your loved ones to the quality of life they deserve.
The internet can be a dangerous place. With Connect and Protect from C Spire, you get the phone you want, and you get the tools to easily track her location, restrict content, and help protect her at any age. It's like a digital mom arm.
What?
That thing moms do.
I'm not following.
How do I put this? Look out!
Oh, mom arm. Got it, yeah.
Introducing Connect and Protect from C Spire. Only $30 a month with free guided setup. Customer inspired, that's C Spire.
Talked about 2017, your last football game, that you also hung up basketball duties that year, from what I remember.
Right, after that year.
You decided, I'm going to stick with baseball. It's a good thing you decided to stick with baseball, right? 2021 turned out to be just a magical season. I mean, I was talking to you about the team before we started the interview today, just talking shop, right? Did you have any inclination at all that this team could possibly win a championship?
Well, obviously, we had been, we went to the College World Series in 18. Gary Henderson did a great job of keeping a team together and getting us there. We went, Coach Lamonis' first year in 19, and then 20, I thought we had a really nice ball club in 20, and of course, we just absolutely got shut off with everybody else with COVID. But 21, I don't think I had an idea of how good that team could be. I knew we could be good because you had Tanner Allen, you had Rowdy Jordan. I mean, we had some good pieces in 21, but I don't think anybody realized how good the pitching could be. And I thought the Will Bednar year, the fact that Kristen McLeod had he didn't have a good postseason, but he had a great season. I mean, he won, I think, 7 out of 8 starts in the conference. I mean, he had a really good season that helped us get to where we were. And then, of course, we just laid an egg in the SEC tournament and looked so bad that I think everybody had sort of said, well, but then we play ourselves through the regional. We beat a really good Notre Dame team to get to the College World Series. So I knew it was a good ball club, but I don't think anybody knew that Will Bednar was going to pitch 3 times and win the MVP and probably do something that no other pitcher's ever done, and that we were going to get all the clutch hits we needed in the big ball games, which is what happened with us. And so many special moments, but I think people, for the one thing that made me realize, that particular championship made me realize, is it takes all the pieces. If Scotty DeBrule doesn't have a great ball game, we don't maybe beat Vandy like we did. If Tanner Leggett doesn't get a key base hit and Braylon Skinner doesn't steal a base, we probably don't beat the Texas ball club. And if Kellum Clark doesn't hit a big home run and set the table for Tanner Allen to hit the 3-run homer, and we come back to beat Virginia after being down. I mean, it just takes all the pieces to win like we did. And of course, you had Landon Sims on the back end nobody could touch. But we had great pitching performance. Houston Harding came in a couple of times and big performance. Preston Johnson did. We just had so many. Everybody contributed. When you look back, nobody can say, I didn't play a part. I mean, everybody got something done, and that's how you win a national championship.
That year was such a roller coaster. You talked about the SEC tournament, and then you get into the regionals, and you play these really good teams, a really good Notre Dame team like you talked about. And then you get into the College World Series, and it's kind of the same thing. It's a roller coaster. You start off beating Texas. You come back in that Virginia game, and if I remember, I don't think Mississippi State had a hit until like the 7th inning, and then things start, like you just mentioned.
I've got no hit into the 7th. In fact, it was the 8th inning that we actually put it together.
That's right. Yeah. You have the comeback against Virginia. Then you lose to Texas. I remember Coach Lamonis saying, man, that just really hit him, because he's thinking, oh, man, come on. Can't be this close and not finish the job. Eventually get into the finals against Vanderbilt. You're 2 wins away at that point from a national championship. State fans longing to hear this for so many years are so close. And to add to the roller coaster ride, it seemed like every single game there was a rain delay.
Right.
I don't know, for a broadcaster, you're thinking, you got to be kidding me, man.
Rain delays are the worst.
So what do you do during a rain delay? Like, what do you do to kill the time?
I don't even know. There's all kind of things that we do in the rain delay. Mostly we just gripe. Can't believe we're sitting here with nothing to do, But there's some great stories told during rain delays, and some interesting people show up usually.
We win it. We, as in all of the maroon and white everywhere, celebrate a national championship with a ball club that's so resilient, has had a great postseason, never had any doubt in their mind.
Take me inside the press box. Had you practiced that call when you get the final out, Mississippi State, they blew out Vanderbilt in that deciding game? It was never in doubt. You get the final out, and I'm curious if you had practiced that call. I would have to think, going back to you talking about practicing before, did you let it happen organically? Just say, whatever comes out of my mouth, that's what I'm going to say.
I don't ever practice. I mean, I've never practiced calls.
Yeah.
I practice situations in my head, but I don't ever try to practice calls because I think spontaneity is what makes for a good broadcaster, that you find the right thing to say at the right time. And sometimes you don't. But and I'll be honest with you, that was not anything that I had even thought about. I was hoping that we would have a close game, and I mean, you'd like for it, but that one was over long before it was over, and you were just sort of riding through it. And I kept. Everett Kenner was in the press box. He was a bus driver, and of course I was doing the game with Jay Powell, and we'd be in the half, and I'd tell Jay, I said, this game has gotten really almost not interesting anymore, and every time I'd say something, Everett would say, "Don't you say that? Don't you say that?" And I thought, but I think about the 8th inning, I said something again, and he said, he got really upset with me. He said, "It ain't over yet. Don't say that." So, but anyway, we get the win, and you know what? I was more relieved that it was over than anything else. I mean, that it finally, because I felt like I hate blowout games. I don't care whether it's us or them. I hate broadcasting those games because you have to dig to make anything interesting. And when we got the final out of that game, to me it was a relief this thing is over, because I felt like it was over about 5 innings ago, and yet you got to figure out a way to try to make it interesting the rest of the way.
And at that point, you're just looking at your watch saying, how soon can we wrap this up?
Yeah.
Take me through the emotions you felt when you finally did see that final out and get to call that final out. This is something Mississippi State baseball fans have waited decades to hear. They've been close so many times, so many incredible players, so many incredible coaches, so many incredible moments, and now they finally get to hear you call that moment. What emotions were you feeling at that moment?
Well, I was just thinking about. I think what I was thinking. We had chances to be here before, and we haven't been able to do it. This team got it done, and that's a special. People at Mississippi State, I think, for a long time have felt like we should win. We've gotten to Omaha 13 times now, I think it is, and several times we've thought we were good enough to win it. I thought the '85 team was good enough to win it.
Yes.
I thought our '98 ball club was pretty offensively really, really good, but we couldn't do it. 13 we had a chance, but and I thought that had some great play. I look back at that 2013 team, and of course we had Hunter Renfro on that ball club, and we had Adam Frazier on that ball club. We had a lot of really good pieces around them. But if you look at the pitching staff on that 13 team, we sort of ran out of starting pitchers. But you look at the guys that came off there. We had Chad Gerardo, Jacob Lindgren, Jonathan Holder, and along with Kendall Gray. We had 4 guys that have pitched in the big leagues on that ball club. But when we got to UCLA, though, I knew the way we had to use everybody during the lead into that best 2 out of 3 series, just to get there, that we were going to be really depleted, and we were. If it could have been arranged a little differently, where we had not had to use the pitching as we did, I think we had a chance to win. UCLA's pitching was unbelievable, though. They were really good pitching-wise, but it's always those kind of moments. But I look back and I think there are several teams. I'm not sure whether this is our best team ever. It was good. It was really good. But we've had some really good pieces on some other teams. My worst moment, I hate to say this for Bobby Thigpen, was when I saw Greg Elena hit the home run in the bottom of the 9th in Omaha in '85, because I really thought that ball club had great players on it, maybe as good a collection of great players as we've ever had. Got 4 Major League All-Stars on that ball club, and yet we didn't win it that year. But that's baseball.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
C Spire's Fiber makes it so easy to make music on my computer. I was on Discord in real time, and it was like that. It's like that. It was exactly like being in the studio. From just the tap of the button, I can just transfer files or send over projects, send over anything. It's just something I don't need to worry about. I'm just like, I have the creative side, and C Spire has got the whole internet side.
The weather's getting warmer, and that means Mississippi blueberries are ready to be picked. Make a day of it with family and friends at one of the many U-Pick farms across the state. Or take home Mississippi-grown blueberries from your local market, because locally grown is what's best for our state. Donate at farmfamiliesms.org to help us spread the word, or find us on Facebook. The Farm Families of Mississippi, our work fuels the world.
The fabric of any community is its people. It's the commitment to hard work and to be our best. It's where you know your neighbor by name. It's where family is important. At Covington County Hospital, we are your family and friends. That's why your healthcare is important to us. From emergency room visits to primary care to behavioral health, we want to make sure that healthcare is available when you need it. Covington County Hospital, where your healthcare matters.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
That 85 team, just for conversation's sake, Rick Cleveland, great columnist, author, you know Rick.
Yeah.
He says that is the best baseball team here in the state that he's ever seen, that 85 team. He said that's the best team, and there might be one or two from State or Ole Miss that might, get in that second place, but he said as far as the best team he's ever seen, it was the 85 team. So
you couldn't hit through. I mean, you couldn't pitch through the lineup because, Palmero or Clark one were going to hurt you, and if they didn't, Van Cleve or Fig Penn or somebody else is going to hurt you. That was just a really, really good, talented ball club.
Do you remember the first time you got to hold the national championship trophy? Remember what that moment was like?
I don't know that I've ever held it.
You got to be kidding.
I've got my picture taken with it.
We got to fix that.
No, I was just trying to think whether I picked it up or not. We had it sitting in the room when we went to and ate after the ball, or the next morning, I think, after the ball game for breakfast, and it was sitting there, and we all, the players were getting pictures done. I know I got my picture taken with it. I don't know whether I picked it up or not, though.
We got to fix that.
It's just a trophy.
that you've waited a long time to pick up now. Come on. We got to, at some point this season, we have to have a picture of you holding the trophy. You have to hold the trophy. You're coming up on year 45 as Voice of the Diamond Dogs. What keeps the fire burning for you to keep doing it?
The relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I enjoy doing it, but I think I enjoy the relationships more than almost the broadcasting. I'm just being around the ball club. COVID was tough because you don't get to interact, but relationship with coaches and players over the years, and I enjoy doing the games, and generally this is a good, to me this is as good, if you're not doing pro ball, this is as good as it gets doing baseball at Mississippi State.
I know that faith is important to you. You've been public about it. I remember a show, now I'm taking you back here. I used to listen to a show, I think it was called Spirit of Sports. I think that was the name of it. I don't remember the name of the show, but I know you and David Kellum used to.
David and I did a show for about 3 years or so, did it together.
It was about faith in sports.
Faith in sports, and it was, David and I are dear friends. It's interesting, and John Cox and I are dear friends. And people don't understand that maybe, but we are. And we text pretty regularly, and, but I think the world of both of those men. And they've been good friends to me over the years. But yeah, David and I did that for several years, and we met in Tupelo, and did it at a radio station there in Tupelo. But faith is important to me. I teach a Sunday school class, and have been on a number of mission trips, and I just feel like that it centers your life in a direction that it needs to be. So. I think that probably that's the centerpiece of my life. I mean, it's interesting. When I couldn't figure out what to do with myself, I really have a feeling that God sent me to be a sportscaster so I could find my place in this world. And so sometimes you just need something to give you direction. And I really, looking back, I didn't think about it like that at the time, but looking back, I think that was it was a gift from God to allow me to do what I've been able to do.
And He's certainly given you the grace to do it. There's been so many great calls over the years. So I do want to switch it up on you real quick. What do you like at home? Like, what is your go-to? Some people hunt, some people fish, some people binge watch TV shows. So what do you do when you're not prepping for a baseball game or being asked to do one of these? I mean, what do you do just to chill out?
I mean, I'm not I play golf a little bit.
Okay.
Very poorly.
Nobody can play golf worse than me, I promise.
Hey, but in the summer particularly, once baseball's over, I'll play a good little bit of golf into the fall. I drink coffee with a group. In fact, I was out here. We meet in the Coliseum. There's a bunch of us athletic department employees that meet out here, and usually a group of anywhere from 7 or 8 to 12 or 15. And we drink. Somebody drinks coffee. I don't drink every morning, but I come out a good many. I'll come out several mornings a week a lot of times and drink coffee. And I do a lot. I do my own yard work. Most of my neighbors, have it all hired out, but I do my own yard.
Still do it?
Yeah, I enjoy doing it. I've been a runner all my life. I don't run now because the old joints have gotten pretty. But up until 2 years ago, I was still running. But I jog a little bit every now and then now, but I mostly walk. I try to get 4 to 5 miles a day in. I ran five miles a day for, I don't know. I started running when I got out of college. And I'm 75, so you can imagine how long I ran.
Wow.
But I try to get. I used to always try to get 30 miles a week in running. And I've always been an exercise. I've lifted and run most of my life. But I'm not a big TV watcher. I do watch sports, but I don't watch a whole lot of else. Watch a little news, a little sports. I'm not much of a movie person. In fact, I've only been to a movie theater maybe twice in the last 25 years.
Really?
Yeah. I watch one, at home every now and then, but not that often. I've got 4 daughters, so we stay in touch, talk to them a good bit. But 2 of them live in Huntsville, 1 in Memphis, and 1 here in Starkville. So family things. My wife and I like to go out and eat. I'm pretty vanilla.
Pretty laid back.
Yeah, pretty laid back.
We stay busy up here all the time.
Yeah, I stay busy enough. I do a couple of radio shows for the Super Talk station here in town. I do a sports show on Wednesday, and Monday today I set up some interviews. I'm going to do some interviews tomorrow. I'll do a show at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and I do a community news show where I interview mayors, aldermen, all kind of people that have community stuff to do, and I do that on Thursday. And those two things, I like to go to the mountains. We go to the mountain on vacation a couple of times a year, a lot of times, and hey, I'm pretty easy.
Nothing wrong with that. My final question for you. I actually thought about this. If I ever got to ask you this, I thought about this as soon as that final out was recorded against Vanderbilt in the National Championship Series. If your longtime friend and broadcast partner, Jack Cristil, were still here, and you got to, here you go, Jack, you got to hand him the National Championship trophy to hold and check it out, what do you think that conversation would be like?
He would obviously, he loved baseball, so he would be very proud of that. He just loved Mississippi State. He felt like Mississippi State had given him so much that he could never pay it all back. Mm-hmm. And he was a true professional who loved his job. He loved his family. He was very dedicated to his Jewish faith, and he was a complex and yet a simple person. He knew he had no doubt that he knew what he believed in, knew how he wanted to handle things, and but at the same time he could have a big heart and really be. He was a good friend. He treated me great throughout all the time we were together, and I'll always appreciate him because of that. But whatever he would say about Mississippi State would be positive, and if he thought a national championship, he'd be super excited about that.
This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Growing up, listening to, you just mentioned all that, listening to you, listening to David Kellum, John Cox, being someone who wanted to go into some realm of this media, radio, TV, something. So this is a great thrill of mine to finally get to do this. And I know we've been trying to get together for a while. So thank you for finally doing this. And I hope we get to do part 2 down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. Look, I've got a copy of the tornado call too.
Oh, really?
And I can hear you in the background laughing. I'm like, this is one of the best clips ever. Y'all playing Troy.
Yeah, playing Troy.
He goes, I can't tell you when we're coming back here, but I can tell you one thing, we're gone from here. And I hear Jim in the background laughing. I'm like, all you hear is the headsets going down.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.